So I set it to a Amiga 1000 because that's what I worked on. That was the only thing we had. But this disk, I think, wants to be a 500 or a 2000.
There we go.
So this was one of the disks in probably 50 disks that we had that Forrest was able to archive. And we have like Rocket Ranger source code, Sinbad source code, a lot of stuff that came from the desert. Yeah. So I just need a CLI, which okay. The Ellis. So this is the first disk of stuff that I worked on at Cinemaware, and this is the source code for this program. And let's see. Copper.
Whoa.
Okay, so what this was is, and I have a loaded picture, and so I had a couple of pictures. I don't know if these were Sachs pictures or not, but oh yeah, I guess it's Sachs Castle, must be. So this was my test file.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
And so
That's nice.
what you can do here is, so this is a picture that he, obviously used up to 32 colors to draw. And what I can do is I can go and pick a line on this bar here. Like I can start like here, and now the way the copper works is the copper uses DMA, direct memory access. So the program you're running doesn't have to continuously feed it the palettes. It's automatic. It's built into the chip. The same way that the graphics pixels are being taken out of memory, the copper does the same thing with the palettes. So on that line, it's saying change to a new palette. So if I pick one of the colors in the palette that he has, and then I can go edit that, and we'll see. You can see those are the colors that are changing. So now you're starting with a new palette of 32 colors, starting from that line, and then try to make it more obvious. Yeah, see, like that. Mm-hmm. So you can see that this color doesn't even come in until that line over there, and then all the way down the screen continues with this new palette. And there's a bunch of functions to be able to save these palettes and load them, so you can archive them and pull them back in, and also a way to save the format of all the palette changes, so the programmers could use that list of the colors. But the great thing about the copper is you can do it with as many lines as you want. So you can put all these changes in, and each one of these can change colors, many colors in the palette. Let's see if I can see that one. Nope. First I have to find a color that's actually in that area, probably a green. Let's see, maybe blue.
So effectively you're introducing more colors?
Yeah, so between these two bars, now these lines are all working with a different palette than the other lines. So I can have a different palette between each one of these sections here, and modify. So you could have I'm sure a lot of games used it, where they have like a viewing screen or something, and then control panel at the bottom. Anything that's split on a vertical line, they probably hard-coded in the program, use this palette down to here and then do a changeover to a different palette down to here. But there was never, as far as I know, any tools that let the artists play around with the copper themselves. So if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to use 32 colors for the house, and then down here, if I wanted to, have a new palette to put more detail into the bushes and the foliage, then I could, mark this right here, and see now I have a whole new palette of colors starting there that I can use dedicated to drawing this area of the screen. And so, after I got that working, I'm like, hey, I can do this. I can maybe make a game. So it's kind of like the lost tool that no one ever really saw, no one ever got to use, and that was my introduction to Cinemaware. And then the next phase was working on the Blitter, which is the actual functionality on the Amiga to draw windows of graphics on the bitmap. And that was also very new because all the other computers had no graphics acceleration. This was like the first kind of graphics acceleration there was to be able to say, okay, I have a picture and I want to blit it on the screen and tell it, put it here and move it here, and the hardware does it all for you. So that was my next project, was to get that up and running, and could do that another presentation another time about that in the future. And that was to get the fastest possible Blitter program to get the graphics on the screen as much as we could, because at Cinemaware we had all kinds of action arcade stuff, and we had all this new power to be able to move lots of objects around the screen and have the hardware help us. So my next project was optimizing the Blitter functionality for that, which we ended up using on most of the in-house games that were done by Cinemaware. And Peter Kaminsky, who did Rocket Ranger with me, he wrote the tool that actually animates all the graphics and things. So I mainly worked on the arcade game sequences in Rocket Ranger, all the shoot 'em ups and everything, with all the great art from the artists. And then Peter wrote the engine that actually animated all that stuff. And then he wrote the kind of the game core, the play, the storyline part of it. So that's how I landed in Cinemaware.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Question. So this program that we are looking at, is this your own program that you created?
Yeah. Yeah.
So nobody else in the world has seen this except
no one,
us.
Wow. You're the first people to see this.
Whoa.
So I know
so cool.
Amiga, it can support up to 4,096 colors. So have you done any kind of testing as far as how many colors you can introduce? Can you go up to 4,096? I mean, on this, I mean.
Yeah. So that was a special mode, right? I don't remember.
You could do it with this.
You could do it, yeah. Probably an artist can literally introduce.
Yeah, as long as it's separated by the vertical line, then you can have 32 colors on every single line, different colors, and so.
And is the line defined by like just a row of pixels, or I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah, one row of
400,
pixels.
400, how many lines?
Yeah, 400
lines.
but you
Yeah.
can get to 480.
Yeah, so most of the, I think that most of the games we worked on were non-interlaced, because when you're doing animation and everything with interlaced video, you get either your things look chunky because you're moving at 30 frames a second, or if you're trying to go 60 frames a second, you get tearing. Every other line tears when things move. So to make the games look crisp and very, responsive, everything ran non-interlaced at 60 frames a second, but we sacrificed half the vertical resolution to get that.
I remember that intro. It rabbit jumping. I mean, you got the
Yeah,
it
it was amazing stuff because we started early with the tools that we did for Rocket Ranger. Tools called Movie, M-O-V, capital E. I don't know why Peter named it that, but that was the internal tool that all the artists would. They would first do all their art, I think, in Deluxe Paint, and then there was also an animator program that I think Electronic Arts made that allowed them to animate different scenes with the characters, and then our movie tool, which Peter wrote, we could take all the animations that the artists did mock-ups on their computer, and then actually animate them on our game engine, and then call them up. So I would be calling up like play a certain animation that might have 5 frames, and it would automatically play in the background until I told it to change or do something else. And it had he had like an unlimited number of, I guess you could call them sprites or characters that could be placed on the screen. And so, of course, the more you added, the slower things got. So, like, if you remember, there's a scene where you're flying with the jetpack and you're avoiding things. The more things coming at you, you can kind of see the frame rate sort of bogged down because it's putting more stuff on the screen. But still, no other computer had that kind of power in the hardware to animate big objects like that.
There's a complete Cinemaware. I'm a huge fan of Cinemaware anthology you can buy on Steam. I mean, it's the PC version. It's not going to be as beautiful as the Amiga version, but you can get all of those games like Kings of Chicago, right? And, it came from the desert went to Wings.
Yeah, so they're just emulating a lot of them.
I think so. I ended up buying it. It's the PC version, so it doesn't have the color palette.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because the next thing would be to try to get the development system up and running and build Rocket Ranger, the Rocket Ranger code. Because one of the files in here, it has the Rocket Ranger. Here's how you build it, and this is definitely the last version, the final version. So I guess we can go from that.
Another version?
Yeah, and there's a whole change log of Rocket Ranger which Peter was maintaining, which was great to look at because it was like, all our bugs like listed in order and things. Like one of them, it was funny because in Rocket Ranger you're fighting the Nazis and everything, and so whoever was doing the text on the directions and everything spelled fascist wrong. So one of the bug changes is fascist spelled correctly on the this screen and stuff like that. So it was kind of blast from the past. Pretty funny. Yeah. Any other questions? Or?
I have kind of a super broad question.
Yeah.
So Cinemaware is kind of the birthplace of the modern video game in terms of that story mode, really story-rich video game. Being kind of at the forefront of that, what do you think of where video games are now, where they're basically movies?
Yeah.
Is that weird for you to see?
Yeah, it's very strange to get. It's now to the point where if I look at like a YouTube video of a game, and if I don't look close enough, it's like I thought it was a movie. It's so accurate. But being in the video game business for so many years and watching it grow from Atari, VCS to what we have now, the thing that always changed also was the fun in the games. The more the graphics got incredible, the frame rates are high, but there was so much focus on that the fun gameplay started to get lost. And so there's a million first-person shooters, and I never learned the muscle memory or the brain memory to sit down in any first-person shooter and just start blowing things away. but I remember the games that we had, which I think were the funnest of all time. Like one of my favorite games is Robotron arcade game, which I actually have the arcade game because I like it so much. And so, and those games were, they were very limited on the graphics that they could do. The programmers went out of their way to try to get as much out of the processors that they could, and fought with the hardware engineers saying, we need a faster clock, or we need a faster processor, or we need another processor. And they're like, the bean counters don't want to pay for another $50 6502. So they just got everything they could out of the hardware. And while they were doing it, they were making really fun games to play. And I think a lot of that got lost, with all the, it looks great, but do you really want to sit down and play it all the time?
Totally.
Yeah.
So Forrest right now has an ADF of this file
Yeah.
that you have?
Yeah, I took this from his archive. I found it in there. It's just,
So that means we, as SCAN members, can use that ADF?
yes, this should come out to the world.
All right,
A few
there you go.
years late, but yeah, definitely we should pass it
That's
out.
so cool.
And the source code is, it's on the. I honestly don't even know how to quit this program. How do you quit
It's
it?
kind of unbelievable that was drawn
On
with
the
pixels.
Amiga, you turn it on
Yeah.
and off.
Yeah.
So this, I'm actually going to kind of cheat because I can look at it a lot faster on my Mac. But let's see, the disk, it was just Tom's source stuff.
Tom's source stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, where is it?
I think
Yeah,
that,
Tom-
yeah, they're
Yeah, source Amiga
Amiga
stuff. Yeah, so this is actually the program. This
Cop?
program,
No.
yeah, the cop, for copper, and so we got the source code and everything. So if people want to quickly learn how to make the copper do what you want, you can go in here and what did I call it? Let's see what I call it. Oh, and Cinemaware selling, that was like the brand or the product, and the company was Master Designer Software, and they probably a year or so later they actually changed the name of the company to Cinemaware.
a little bit
So-
catchier.
Yeah, a little bit catchier. So Master Designer Software, 1987, and this is Have Fun.
Oh, that's
So-
cool.
So that's where I was thinking back then, having fun, learning this incredible new computer. So yeah, we got to distribute all this stuff. Yes, maybe finally it'll have its day in the sun.
There you go.
Did you ever work on
That's really
Three
cool.
Stooges though?
Did not work on Three Stooges.
Oh.
No, did not work on Three Stooges.
Did he want to make a Three Stooges video game?
Oh, they did.
Oh,
Yeah,
they did. You're
they
right.
did.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Oh yeah,
Oh
Bob.
my God, yeah.
Bob, he was like Rocket Ranger was a distraction because he's like, we got to get to the Three Stooges thing.
That's
And then
awesome.
like what came next? I think maybe Sinbad or Wings or something. It's like, okay, that's cool, but what about Three Stooges? So finally, they put it together and it came out really great.
He was obsessed.
A lot of fun. Yeah, they reinvented all the things, and in the office, all I could hear, for months was in the other room was all the Three Stooges, cracking, all the sound files cracking up, and like poking their eye out and stuff. And it's like, so the whole company became the Three Stooges for a while. Yeah, so I worked on Rocket Ranger, and then I did a little work on a couple of the other games, on the football game they did. They did a football game. I worked on the kicking scene, and then the epic It Came from the Desert, which was a many years long project that went on and on and on. And so by the third year or second year of It Came from the Desert, everybody had been pulled in to work on it to get it out the door, and so I ended up doing a lot arcades for that, like I did the flamethrower with the ants at the end, and the hospital scene where you're trying to escape from the hospital.
Did you work on the sequel? Did it came from the desert?
No, didn't. That was after my time. Yeah. And so, and I think maybe probably had worked on a few, like stepped in to work on a few of the other games. Like there's Sinbad source code on here too, so I figured I was probably involved in that or something. And yeah, so we got I saw Sinbad source code, Rocket Ranger, lots of Rocket Ranger source code. All the source code for It Came from the Desert arcades that I worked on, just the pieces that I worked on, all the sources in there. And so, so I'm kind of curating it now with, working with Forrest to go through and see what's on all the discs, because I found one of the discs has my like paper I did in my psychology class. So it's like, okay, well, the world doesn't need to see that.
Oh, no. Why not? Any other questions for Tom, guys?
So what happened next after Cinemaware?
What happened next? I got into hardware, and actually the Amiga became a real great workhorse computer for me, because there was a company that made a program for schematic capture and laying out PC boards, and we actually have that software too.
Oh.
It was called ProNet and ProBoard, and that's super rare. And so I used that to lay out PC boards for the electronic stuff that I finally, wanted to work on. And so I used the Amiga to do to make PC boards that controlled the lasers for Phantasmic at Disneyland. If you've ever seen Phantasmic, so the boards that controlled all the lasers and the fiber optic effects for Phantasmic were all laid out on Amiga. And I did a bunch of other projects with Amiga, and doing hardware stuff, and then eventually got pulled back into the video game industry on Sega platform, doing some Sega games, and so kind of ping pong back and forth between hardware projects and video game industry, and then went off to do a lot of toy stuff, toy design, electronics design. And then in the toy industry, there was a big surge in the plug-and-play games with the handheld joysticks that you buy.
We had those.
And so here I was pulled back to the video game world again. So it's been a big part of my life over the years.
Cool.
Any other questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. That was so cool.